Very good. Okay. So, first of all, thank you guys. Thank you for joining this one. So, yesterday we had a discussion, right? So, based on the yesterday's discussion, do you have any kind of a questions?
No, sir.
Perfect. Okay. So, I believe that you are at least clear about what is cloud computing and why we are really learning that one. Or should I give you some brief about again? We start with that one, and then I'll start with the class and everything details. Will that be okay?
Sure.
Perfect. Okay, sure. Okay, so let's start with basic understanding about why actually we are talking about all these things, right? So you might have heard about a terminology type application tier, right? Because yesterday we have talked about the cloud computing. We understood that okay, first of all, when we talk about the overall application, how that application really get access, like you are a normal user, how you connect to Facebook or any other application, and from there how you really get connected to the backend services, correct? Now when we talk about all these backend services and everything, let's try to get deeper understanding about the application layer, because that is very important. Now whenever you talk about any application, generally application is considered as a multiple tier or multi-tier or three tier kind of like a architecture. Now when you talk about this three tier architecture, right, any application, right, be it anything, so this generally three tier architecture actually consists of three different technologies, right? Now the first technology is your UI, the front end actually, where which you are accessing from your web application or a website. um, that could be your application. The second, or maybe the second tier of that particular application is the app server, which is a backend. So yesterday I showed you, right, how you connected from one device to backend system. That's where the communication really happens. And then your backend server also connected with some sort of a databases. Now there are different types of databases. Yesterday also we have seen that how the categorization really works out. There are different categories we have in the database. So this particular talk, I'm talking about either a relational database or a non-relational database. I'm not talking about the unstructured data here. We're talking about the structured or semi-structured data, right? For that we need a database. We definitely need a storage to again store the unstructured data, right? Because this is where the multi-tier application actually the concept really comes into the picture, and every communication between these two is also important. And we have to really control the security aspects about this application, that how a UI can really connect to app server, from app server how this connected to databases, and from all these databases how can we really use a storage solution which can really be connected with these two options, right? This technology we generally call it as a multi-tier application, right, which has all the tiers. Now you might have heard about a terminology like full stack developer. What is this full stack developer? Full stack developer is a person who knows how to develop the entire application. Like he knows about the UI development, he knows about app server development, he knows about database, and he also knows about how to store that data, okay, and deploy that application. But now in the DevOps world, the person who is actually doing, like is managing all these things. So for example, if you see as a user, I'm connected to the web server, and from developer side, okay, developer has access to all the UI and app servers and database and everything. Now with this concept, you also imagine that how can we really work on the security aspect of it, because that is also very important. When we are talking about the security, we will start with a scenario, say like you are a architect of any organization, and you have multiple multi-tier applications, right? Your data center, you have a data center company data center, and you have actually kind of like a multi-tier application where every application is representing one a full tier, right? Say like front end, your database, your backend system, and your so the solution whichever you have. So storage, backend, and everything is available here, and this is how you are all connected with these systems. Now this one system you might be having in data center, there are multiple systems or kind of like application you might be managing. And to manage that application, you definitely need a devices, the network devices which are really getting connected and controlling different level of users, right? Those level could be a developer, those level could be a user, those level could be a support person or a hacker, right? And that's where the security aspects is also really very important when you're talking about this ones. Now why we are talking about these things is because to give you a glance about how any developer or a DevOps person really gets challenging environment when he's working with the backend solution services, right? These are all backend services we might not be exposed during the application things, but these are some of the things which are very very critical. Now in this scenario, if I ask you that, what kind of access, because everyone will be having a same entry point. Okay, it's like you have a you go to office, and in office you definitely all go from the same gate, but not all actually having access to everything, right? There might be some people actually having a HR admin things, or there might be some people are coming from different finance team, so they will be having a different level of access. And definitely there are few people who do not want anybody without any access to really enter your premises. That's the exact same thing which we have to also logically do in terms of security things. Okay, and that's where we see that the firewalls, the security things, the security controls, the authorization and access controls are actually very important when you are really playing with all these terminologies. Okay, so we will see that at every level of your application, be it your access, be it your any tier of your application, how the security is also really matters. That's also we are going to see using the authorization and other stuff. Okay, now, when we talk about the cloud computing, right? I'm kind of like, that. Okay, first of all, is there any question regarding this particular thing? Anyone?
No,
No
sir.
questions? Perfect. Okay. No issues. So again, when we talk about the cloud computing thing, right? We have seen that cloud computing has a lot of benefits in terms of your cost effective. It's very cost effective. It's provide agility. It's a software integration. It has a kind of like integration with all the services which is online, because it's an online service. We definitely can integrate with our services. For example, right? If you log into Netflix or any other online services, right, nowadays, you also get an option that you can connect your Gmail ID or Facebook ID to log in that service. What is that? That's actually the integration of your application from one application to another application. Another example could be something like an online payment. For example, you are purchasing something on amazon.com, right? And when you do the actual payment, that payment goes to some other payment gateway. It could be something like a Paytm or UPI, for example, nowadays, or banking. All these things are actually internally connected with the API authentic APIs. So Amazon is connected with the UPI's API or bank's API, and that's how the transaction is really happening. So because it's already online, Amazon.com is already online, the UPI or APIs are already online, you can actually have a better connectivity with them. So that's the again advantage of actually having a cloud computing. Unlimited storage, right? We talked about storage devices where, in case if I have a lot of data, like terabytes of data or petabytes of data, I can really store that data into the cloud computing environment. That is also supported by the cloud computing. Scalability, we'll talk about the scalability, and we'll see how scalability really plays a major role in your overall application performance. Global access, you can actually access the resources, whatever you are putting up on cloud, definitely you can access it anywhere from the world. So that is also a very good option when we talk about the cloud computing thing, right? Because you don't really need us, because say, for example, if I'm putting anything on cloud or anything on G Drive, Google Drive, you can actually share that across anyone can really access. But at the same time, cloud also provides you the flexibility that you can control that. Say like you have put up some content, and you want this content to be only accessible by Indian people, or only from Indian region or Indian locality. So definitely you can control that using cloud computing. By default it's all open, but you can control that. Okay, automated updates, quick deployments, ready to use services. These are some of the things which are really important when you are going for the cloud computing. Now, when we talk about all these good aspects, right, are there any limitations? I would call it as a limitation, not a drawbacks, but the limitations, or some of the things which you have to always look for when you are going for a cloud computing. The first thing is definitely the recurring cost. Now, at one point of time, we are talking about a cloud cost effective thing, and then the another part we are talking about the recurring cost. It's exactly same like when you are watching a Netflix or any other online services. It's like a recurring cost you are really going to pay. Now that recurring cost is important when you are kind of like, just just 1 minute, guys. Sorry for that. Yeah. So recurring cost is a concept wherein you are monthly paying the cost for that one. And the challenge with this option is that in case if you stop paying, okay, your services will go off. Correct. So it's like you are, because it's a rented house or a rented scheme. Whatever you have actually done in that rented house, whatever furniture or whatever assets you have in that house, in case if you are not paying the rent on time, your owner can lock that house. That's it, as simple as that, and you will not be allowed to really enter into that premises or into that particular house. So what you're going to do, you're going to lose all the assets what you have inside that house. So to keep that house with you and have that access to you, definitely you'll have to pay the recurring cost. It's a rent versus buy kind of a concept, right? Security is also one of the concerns by a lot of people actually, where they feel that cloud computing is still not that secure because it's all online services. Still everybody, and hacking, as you know, right, can is really growing. So cyber security threats are, it's there. So in case if someone wants to make sure their data is secure, they always concern about the cloud computing. For example, banking services, right? Banking are still not going heavily on the cloud computing things, even though they are started working on the security aspect, but still they are like not going with the they are not really very confident about the cloud computing. They still want to keep their data on premises or in services which are really on premises solutions. So security is still a concern with the with the cloud computing. New skill, as we all know that cloud computing is a new skill. If you want to use it, how to kind of like it's like a learning a new technology. And as we understand that learning definitely never ends, so this is a new skill from the company's perspective, also from the individual perspective also, right? Because everybody is now moving into the cloud computing, so we have to really learn that. It's like, again, if I tell you about the new things, right? UPI. UPI is a new technology, but however, everybody started adopting that UPI thing. So now now banks are also pushing UPI payments, and everybody is nowadays accepting the UPI payment, right? Earlier, the card payment was not really allowed in that manner, but UPI, if you see, even a normal chai wala person also actually now accept the UPI payment. So it's a new thing, right? New technology. Exactly the same thing with the cloud computing. If you want to really survive in your overall career, you have to learn new technologies, and you have to be always on top of the technology things whatever is really coming in the market. Cloud computing is definitely one of that, which is uh, which is already growing, and which has a lot of demand in terms of jobs and everything. So it's a new learning from the individual perspective, but from the company perspective is definitely a new learning, and they have to really hire new people, and make sure that that it's really there. So that's where it is coming under a limitations, rather than actually I'm putting that as a new skill, as a strength for cloud computing, because in the context of providing this to companies, it's really important. Okay, apart from this, anything you feel is a advantage or a disadvantage of cloud computing? You might have heard about this, right? I have a few things listed here, but anything which you have heard about, anyone wants to share anything? What do you think could be the limitation for cloud computing, or what is good or what is bad for cloud computing? If you have heard anything, right, I'm sure you might have heard something. Anyone? No?
Security may be a concern, sir. Security may be a concern.
Yes, so definitely security is one of the concern. Anything else? Just give a guess, guys, and look, nothing, no answer is a good or bad here. We are all kind of like learning, so don't hesitate. Do you think a lack of control could be one of the thing, or vendor login could be one of the thing? As I mentioned, right, vendor logged in. Now what is this vendor locked in? The vendor locked in is a concept that you have taken a service from one customer, Okay, and then you have to really stick to that customer. For example, I'm just giving example, say like if you buy a car, okay, if you are buying it from the Maruti or any Tata or something like that, you may get the people actually which are really important. But if you want to buy some if you buy some product, the genuine product, you have to go to that vendor only. You cannot really buy it from anything. It's not possible that you are fitting Tata's actually accessory into Maruti's car. Not possible, that's not going to happen. Okay, same thing happens with the uh, some luxury cars. For example, if you have a Mercedes or Audi or something like that, then those cars actually do not really allow you also to get service in other service centers. They want their service center to be really operated with this particular car. So that's a vendor lock-in, right? You don't have choice. Once you are buying that particular car, or once you are buying that particular item, you have to really get it repaired or serviced from that particular vendor only. So it's same thing like a vendor locked in. So that is also one of the limitation or challenge which companies are nowadays facing, and that's where companies are going more towards the open source technologies, right? Or some services which are like cloud agnostic. Now when I talk about cloud agnostic, right, these terminologies you might have seen, there is something like cloud native and cloud agnostic. Cloud native is everything which is actually supported by that cloud. So say like if I'm using Azure, so I'm using all Azure services. No other service actually I'm using apart from Azure. If I'm using AWS, I'm using all AWS services because they provide all services. If you see, they provide A to Z, everything whatever you want in cloud, they provide everything. But some of the companies do not want that. They don't want to get stuck in the Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. So what they do really, they always try to find out a service which is not supported or which is not provided by these organizations or these cloud computing, but still they want to really use best of breed. For example, when I talk about all these services like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, they have some or other good pieces for, or maybe some good services. If I talk about AWS, AWS is good in open source technologies. It's good in IaaS services. It's good in storage services. Whereas if you ask me about Azure, Azure is very good in the PaaS services. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to kind of like provision and operate. If you talk about Google Cloud, Google Cloud is very good in terms of data analytics services because it's BigQuery and some of the services are very good. So every service has good or bad thing. It's all about like choices what you really make. Exactly the same thing I said, right? Some people goes with Audi, some people goes with BMW, some people goes with some other cars. Doesn't mean that they are all premium cars. They are all providing almost similar kind of functionality, but it's again a choice. It's again the service. It's again the kind of like the attachment you have with towards that brand. It's all about the brand value. And exactly same thing happens with Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. But as you see, Mercedes is again a very polished brand. Whenever we talk about any good or maybe the luxury or a premium class car, then we always talk about Mercedes because that's where we start. Exactly same thing started happening with Azure because Azure is a well-known brand. Microsoft provided. That's where everybody is learning that one. Okay. Downtime is one of the thing definitely because even though we see that companies are really going towards cloud computing for the downtime stuff, but still that is it is really going on that one. So these are some of the things which are really important when it comes with the cloud computing. But there is a two concept about in cloud also you have two separations. One is a private cloud, another one is a public cloud. Have you heard about this term, private or a public cloud? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe if you can just share me some understanding about your private cloud or a public cloud, if you can just share.
Public is something exposed to all, and private is
Okay,
something it is not exposed to everyone. That is strictly prohibited.
very good.
I
Yes,
mean, not
exactly.
exposed to outside world.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly same thing. So I can give you a very basic example. It's like a it's like a hotel. If I tell you, there are a lot of hotels actually in the in India or outside India also. But there are some exclusive hotels, okay, which are only for some members. So you have a five-star hotel, say like you have checked in the five-star hotel, and same hotels are like 5 star, but one hotel is strictly for a very, say like millionaires, for example, or only for politicians, or only for government officials, where you cannot really enter in that premise also. Okay, so the difference between these hotel are like exactly same. Public and a private cloud is exactly same. So in a public cloud, what you have, in a public cloud you have a 5 star hotel, for example. You will get a room, okay, dedicated room for you based on your choice. Again, if you want a smaller room, you will get small room, you have to pay a small amount. If you want to go with a suite, definitely you will have to pay a higher amount. It's all depends on your requirement. However, you will be able to, buy a room there, or maybe rent a room there, and you will be kind of like enjoying all the facilities, the common facilities. It could be swimming pool, it could be gym, it could be, anything whatever you're really looking for. So you will really get all the facilities for that one. Compared to that, you have say like a residence. Okay, for same 5 star hotel, but they are providing resident, and that too only for limited people. So in that resident, you do not have a hall, do not have a common facilities, but you have a dedicated facilities towards you. So like you are renting a villa, for example. Okay, now that villa belongs to you only. Only few people, or only people who are really uh, rented the villa inside that premises. First of all, they are allowed to enter in that gate. That's the first check of security. After that, once you show the confirmation that yes, I am the authorized person, I have the access, I have purchased the particular thing, then only they will allow you to really enter into that premises. Once you enter into the premises, you only allowed to go into your villa, or only in that particular restricted zone which is allocated to you. Now within that villa, you have swimming pool, you have gym, you have everything. Okay, so that means you have access only for that limited resources, or the resources which is provided to you. You cannot use others resources. Maybe you can use roads, you can use some kind of like a transport options, but you cannot really access any other thing, because there is nothing like that. Everybody has an isolated environment. It's like an isolated villa you have, and you should only enjoy within that villa only. That's it, or do whatever you want within that villa only. Okay, so in this two context, the security is definitely some kind of a security. Is, for example, when you are going into a private property, private environment, like a private villa, say, right? 99% of security is taken care by the that service provider, because they will ensure that the first level of security is also consider, your villa security is also there, CCTV cameras, all those things are really implemented. Yes, there are few things which will have to be really concerned about your stuff. So that was the main thing. So now when we talk about the public cloud, definitely public cloud is where you will be really having the limited the all the things you can really check into this, and you can access that one. Exactly same thing really gets into the public and a private cloud. So public cloud is all for public thing, where you have a shared resources, you have a, it supports multiple customers. There is no good or bad. If you want to really pay, if you can afford that particular piece, you will be able to really connect to it. It is having a internet connectivity. It's like accessible to everyone. Anyone can go purchase a, rent a room, and can really go inside that one. And definitely there is a less confidential, because in a hotel room you will have to be making sure that you are really having a key. That master key can be with someone, people can really access. Maybe your, the person who is really working inside that hotel might really steal something, and that happens, right? You have seen that in the hotels also. So exactly same thing happens with public cloud. But when you talk about private cloud, which is definitely share the one, you'll have a dedicated villa for you. You will have a dedicated networking devices, like for example within that villa also, only few people allowed to get into, and only you can be enter, or the person who you allow can really enter into that villa. Otherwise nobody will be able to really do this. So it's a more secure way. Now people, what they do, they always go for a shared, or kind of like a hybrid approach. Now what is this hybrid approach? The hybrid approach is where the public and private cloud really get combined, right? Why we really require these kind of things? For example, banking scenarios. Now banking still do not want to really go to a public cloud, because they see that those are the things which you really want to. So private cloud will have their privately things, and maybe they can really separate it out. They can split it It's something like, you are really, for example, you want to enjoy for some longer time if you are going for a travel, and you can really have a maybe a scenario wherein a person is having access to both the things, right? I have my villa also in the private property shared something. So whenever I want to have some leisure activities, I want to really spend some quality time with my family, maybe a week or so, then I will go to that particular villa. Or for my short trips, okay, or maybe trips to some places where I generally go or just travel, or I want just be public access with there, and maybe I'm just alone going there, definitely I'll prefer to go with a public cloud or public hotel, something like that. So that's how the separation really works out. Okay, so where you want more security because you have your family, you have all the things, you have friends and everything, that's where you want better service, better secure premise where you can really go and relax. Wherein if you are going alone, you know that these things doesn't really matter much, you will choose the things. Exactly same thing happens with the cloud computing. Wherever you feel that you want more secure environment, more dedicated environment, definitely you choose for the private cloud. When you talk about the public cloud, definitely the less configurations, they seem the publicly exposed solutions you can really put up on a public cloud. Okay, so there are again good and bad points about the public and private cloud. These are some of the things which we can really go with. Now, how this really gets into when we talk about the public cloud things, right now we're talking about the Azure things. How this Azure really manages all those things. Okay, so Azure really have a lot of power actually, which is really getting into this thing. But the first thing is Azure has this concept like a Azure region and Azure availability zones. What is this region and availability? So for example, if you see all the marking things, and this is again growing, as you see this, like the regions and the availability zones are actually growing in terms of the numbers, how they really want. So because it's a regional or it's a geographically spreaded service, right? Azure is not just in one continent or one region, it's actually across multiple regions. So it's like it's in US, UK, Europe, Africa, Middle East, you don't know, Asia, China, everywhere it's actually available, India, everywhere it's available. So they, to support that particular continent, they have created a region, they have separated these continents as a regions, as the terminology is the regions here. And in that region, they're actually creating availability zones. So availability zone is nothing but the data center, okay, which is created within that center. For example, in India, they have three regions. They call it as a three region, different regions actually. Now one region is in north, region is in center, one region is in south. Now, if I tell you that one region in the south is actually in Hyderabad, the center region is in Mumbai, the north region is in Noida. Now, in Hyderabad also, they have multiple data centers. They are calling that region as one region, but within Hyderabad, they might be having multiple data centers. Okay, one may be in Panjagutta, one may be in maybe outside of the Hyderabad, one could be something somewhere near maybe Rajmandri. So they might actually have that separate, and they don't really share the exact location. Even though people sometime you can that okay, there is some big building, so that might be belongs to Microsoft, and Microsoft is really have owning that particular premises. Or maybe they might be having a rent, but they mostly they rent or own that particular premises. So that's how they separate it out. And across the world, they have 54 regions, and it's growing again every kind of like year or so. They might be having a few more added, and 140 available actually available countries they really have. And if you see, they have 100 plus availability zones. Now when I talk about availability zones, I'm talking about the data center. So they have 100 plus data centers across the world, and it's also growing every month, mostly, or not every month but every quarter actually. They are coming with new data center, because to support, and the level of infrastructure they are really bringing to the cloud is really remarkable. Okay, and this is what one data center really look like. So I showed you this big picture also already, but this is how the data center really look like. And this is, I'm talking about one availability zone. Like this, they have hundreds of availability zone or hundreds of data centers. Okay, and when we talk about availability zones or a data center, this is how a data center really look like within, from the inside view. This is the outside view. Okay, this is the outside view, this is the inside view. Got it? Now When we talk about one other option which Microsoft also tried, that inside ocean. So they also tried to send this kind of a tube which has all the servers, okay, and they send this inside the sea also, just to ensure, because when you are sending it inside the sea, definitely the pressure is high, and the second thing is the cooling requirement is very low, because to run this kind of a massive data centers, all this servers, definitely it generates a lot of heat, and to control that heat you need a lot of air conditioning, and for that air conditioning you definitely need a lot of electricity, so it's a cost. So to save that cost, they tried that whether we can send it inside the sea and see whether that heat can be really consumed by the sea's atmosphere, and they can really have that thing. So they tried this, they were successful, but then I think because of the natural things, because it was actually impacting the underwater world, so they don't want, and people are also very concerned about that thing, so they said don't do that, otherwise it might have some repercussions. So they just tried this, it worked, but they are not really expanding this more. So this is how things really works out. If you see, the cloud adoption in the enterprises are really growing. Azure is really picking up. AWS was definitely having a higher side, 67% of the stake actually by 2019, but now if you see, it's almost neck to neck. So Microsoft Azure and AWS are kind of like there, wherein cloud, Google Cloud is also growing. There are a lot of companies nowadays also going with the Google Cloud, because there is a concept like a hybrid cloud which is really going into the market, and that's where these things are really coming up. Now apart from that, you also have some other cloud, like VMware is also having a cloud, IBM also has cloud, Oracle also has cloud, Alibaba is also having a cloud, but they are not really that much. It's only specific customers who are really using because of the cost. Again, when you go for a cloud go for any service online, you always go for, you always, first of all, you want to go for a recurring service, right? Maybe subscription based service, and after that subscription based service also, you start seeing that how can I really reduce that subscription cost also, how can I ensure that if I'm using 20, if I'm paying 20,000 per month for that subscription, is there any other alternative option where I can pay only 18,000 or 15,000, so I can save my monthly cost. So that's where people evaluate, and again, based on your use case, as I mentioned, based on your preferences, people are actually choosing the cloud, and they really going with that option. Okay, so eventually if you see, there's no cloud, it's kind of like someone else computer which is you are using, and you are like kind of like paying a rent for that one. It's like again a hotel. You don't own the hotel, you just rent a hotel, you go there, you enjoy for some time, and you just like disperse. Okay, so far any questions, guys?
Sir,
Yeah.
yeah, in our country, how many regions are there and data centers?
Yeah, so in India, we have actually three regions. We have north region, central region, and then the south region. So there are three regions you can see when you are going with the as your regions. And
Okay.
then in that region, availability zones, if you consider, they are actually three availability zone, minimum three availability zones they really go with. Now, when, as I mentioned, right, three data center. So this availability zone, if you ask me, they are kind of like separated. Why they are really creating this availability zone? Again, I'll tell you. Say like you have, you are storing some information at one place. Definitely that information, in case if someone steal that information, you lose everything. So what you do, you actually replicate that information to multiple locations, right? You keep like multiple data at multiple locations. So in case if you go down, maybe imagine in your sorry, you have say like a lot of photos and videos on your laptop. Okay, what you generally do, you always keep a copy of your laptop in maybe a pen drive, and also if you want, you can actually keep it on Google Drive or any other online drive solutions. So what you do, you have a copy on your laptop, you have a copy on your pen drive, and you also have a copy in your Google Drive. Now we create all these things just to ensure that I'm not losing any data. If I am having very important data online, my photos or many documents, for example, not photos, but say like documents, I don't want to lose those documents because those are very important documents for me. Okay, similarly, when a cloud computing gets designed, because they are supporting enterprise level customers, right? Enterprises do not want to lose any data. Otherwise, if they start losing the data, they will lose the confidence on cloud computing. So because to ensure that that trust, cloud computing services are really coming up with more and more details, or more and more kind of like services to offer to their customer. Now in this one, right, when we are talking about the data, the data movement from one data center to another movement, it's also a cost, and it's also for those users who can really afford that. So it's a service provided by cloud computing. If you want to keep only on one data center, fine, no problem, you keep it. But in case if something goes wrong with that one data center, like power outage or any flood or any natural disaster or anything happens, right, with that location, definitely you will have an impact on that. Because you might have heard about Chennai thing, right? So in when the Chennai flood was actually came in, that time all the data centers actually went down, all the systems whatever they were having in the Chennai, because of the power outage, because of the tsunami and all those things, everything was actually down. So what they did, they actually started creating a parallel zone or a parallel system, which is maybe not exactly in Chennai, but outside of the Chennai, maybe in Tirupati or say like Hyderabad, for example, right? So in case if any natural calamity happens in Chennai, still the data is available in other region or other data center. So that's how they separate it out. So if you want to keep on one data center, fine, you know the risk. It's all about risk and understanding that risk. So if you know that okay, there is a my data is not that important, fine, no problem, keep it only in one data center, I will pay only for one data center cost. But if you want your data is very secure, you want to separate it out or spread it out, and it should be really get managed with we cloud provider, or they will take care about that, I will just pay for that one. So the cost will definitely be double. It's same, exactly like the same thing. But there are few services like storage service, for example, or some platform services where they provide that service by default. So say like if you are storing anything on the Azure storage, any document you store in Azure storage, by default it get actually synced with three different availability zones. In one region, three availability zones. So in case if one availability zone goes down, okay, you still have a data into other two availability zones. So it is a very unlikely chance that you will lose that data. So that is a platform service. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
If so, sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am paying for that only one data center in the one region. So
Mm-hmm.
that region is not good in environment or something. So
Mm-hmm.
after that failing cases, can I initialize one more? Can I pay for another center availability center? That is fine. Or at the time of moving application only, we need to purchase multiple data centers
Yes, I think that's a
availability
very good
section.
question. Definitely, that's a very good question. Again, it's all depend on the availability and performance what you are really looking for, and that's a very good question. Why? Because look, this is where the designing, and this is where, as a DevOps engineer, okay, your role really comes in the picture, or as an architect, your role really comes in the picture. Because when you are implementing an application, you have to always think about the availability and the scalability that of that application, and you should know that what is the likelihood of implementing that particular thing. You getting my point? That is very
Yes, yes,
important. So say like you know that example, right? You are going and you are buying a house. Now when you are, or maybe renting a house, for example, when you go for renting a house, you know that maybe for next 1 year I need just 2 BHK flat. That is fine. But maybe after 1 year or 2 year, you might be expecting that, maybe you are planning for a new baby, or you are expecting your parents will join you, or maybe your brother, or your brothers will also, as a joint family, you will actually get into that one, so that planning. Okay, so based on that, what you do now, you either first, on the first day itself or first month itself, you always try to plan with the 3 bhk flat. Or what you do, you say fine, no problem, for next 1 year, maybe my parents are not really joining me, maybe after 1 year they will join me, so after 1 year I will go for a 3 bhk flat, but for now I'll go with 2 bhk flat. So it's all about the planning and architecting that thing.
Analysis and plan, tech analysis and plan.
Exactly. It's all about the planning. It's so architecture will decide whether you want to really go with that one. And again, it's all about your requirement. As I mentioned, right? If your requirement can be fulfilled within 2 BHK, fine. You will only buy the 2 BHK one. But if you feel that no, I need a 3 BHK because I'm also working from home, for example, nowadays that's a scenario. So I want to keep one bedroom dedicated for my office work. So I will set up my complete office in that one bedroom, so I can have an isolated environment there, and that's what actually we can really go with. You getting my point?
That is fine. What my question is like.
Mm-hmm.
So by unknowingly, some by wrong analysis or estimation, I purchased some only one availability set only. But
Mm-hmm.
later after some 1 year or 2 years, I would like to purchase. I would like to pay the some another available set. Is it possible?
Sorry.
Hello.
Yes, tell me.
Now my application is only in one availability zone, one availability set in one zone. After 1 year, I
Okay.
want to I want to keep my application in multiple availability sets. So yeah, these are the enhancement is possible or not?
Yes, that enhancement is also possible. So in case if tomorrow, and that's the flexibility actually which cloud computing will really give you. For example, you have as you mentioned that you are really working with the so requirement you have, and that is what I'm going to explain you. If you just give me 1 minute. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Just give
Please
me
go
one
ahead.
minute. I will explain you.
Sure, sure. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, you guys can hear me properly, right? I think my voice is audible.
Yes, sir. It's good. Getting fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah. Now, so let's get something like, as you correctly mentioned, right? There are few things which are really important. Now, when we talk about that thing, the cloud availability and all those things are really important when we go with that one. Okay, so availability of your application is really proportionate with what is the availability you're really expecting. So you might have heard about a terminologies like 99.9%, or triple nine, or 4 times 9. What actually that does that really means, and how that really relate with your application? And as you correctly mentioned that when you are designing, when you are adopting for a cloud computing resources, what is that really mean? So that really depends on the application availability. So for example, if I ask you that 90% availability of your application, that means in a day you can expect that there will be a 2 hours of downtime, 2 hours of downtime in a day. Okay, per day. You can imagine that in case if someone is telling that, hey, I can provide you 90% of availability for your application, that means he is assuming that, or maybe you have to assume that 2.4 hours of downtime per day might happen. It's not every day will happen, but might happen, so you should be ready for that. Nobody is ready for that. I'm sure about that. No company will really go for this approach. Now in case if you go for 99% of availability, that means still it is 14 minutes of day downtime per day I'm talking about, which again companies will not really agree. Say imagine, like you, if Netflix is telling you, hey look, I'll be down for 14 minutes during the day, and it might happen anytime. Will you join that company, or will you join Netflix? You will stop subscription, you'll go for any other subscription. Okay, same thing will happen. Now when you talk about the high availability, right, what is this high availability concept really comes into the picture? That's where the three nines, or 999.99.99% is actually something comes in here. If you're talking about 1.4 minutes, still it is a 1.4 minutes of delay per day. It might happen then, if your system might go for 1.4 minutes of downtime, can be happen anytime during the day. But then when you come with 99.99%, the more nines you are actually going to add, it is like 8.6% of it. So that means nobody in the world right now providing 100% of availability. No, no cloud. Nobody can really predict that one. Yes, but the time duration is so minimal that you will hardly understand that okay, there is something happening. But in some of the scenarios, for example, in your cloud computing, in your transaction details, for example, you are doing a um, IRCTC transfer for transactions, for example, or you're doing anything for the your your IRCTC, or maybe you can talk about your payment gateways, right? Payment, you are doing a payment. That time you do not expect that your system can go for even a 1 second. Otherwise, your transaction might get loose. So that time you definitely need to go for like 99 or 999999697 nines of those things, which will ensure your availability spaces, right? Similarly, when you talk about elasticity, it's about how you really grow and shrink your systems based on the application demand what you have. Okay, now it's again because availability, you don't want availability, for example, that your IRCTC really works from morning to, because it's an online service, it's a kind of 24 by 7 it's working on. But during the peak period, right, when people are really on the system, like Tatkal, for example, when people are doing Tatkal reservation, that time the system is very highly utilized, and that time the availability of that solution should be 100%. So what we should really do is that I will add, and if you need more availability, you need to add more power, more systems, more compute towards that particular service to ensure that it can handle the capacity. It's like crowd management. That at 31st, for example, on 31st evening, there will be a lot of people who will be coming to hotel. So what they do, they actually put up some bouncers, they put up some security guards, and they ensure that everything is proper, and they actually do all the food and all the arrangement. Because it's a pre-plan. So that's the availability they really increase. Not every day to do, right? Not every day they will be having the bouncers and everything. Just a minute. No. Hello. Wait a minute. Yes. Guys, can you hear me, right? Sorry, just want to check.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Getting you, getting
Okay,
you.
yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. So I was saying, when we are actually having that kind of a planning, so not every day they will really plan for a bouncers, or very big meal or something like that. They only do it only for certain period. So that's where the capacity, because the demand is there, so they actually increase the capacity. But if the demand is lower, they will decrease the capacity. But in a computer world, we don't want that actually happens manually. I want that to be automated, and that's what we generally call it as a elasticity, which cloud computing really provides us. Now when we talk about elasticity, it's all about how the time and everything really works out. For example, when you're working on any application, there are two things which are very important. One is the time, and the request, actually how many requests are really coming into that particular time. Okay, say like you are accessing one application. Normally on IRCTC, say like 100 people are accessing that application, but during Tatkal, there are like 1,000 people are accessing that application. That means the demand is high on that particular time. So my capacity, whatever really having at that time, if my capacity, max capacity, is to support only 500 users during 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., and if my user actually increase or goes more than 500, what is going to happen? My application will actually fail that time. You agree? Because my max capacity is only for 500. I have actually designed my application to support only 500 users. But somehow my demand really jumped high, and it crosses the limit of whatever capacity I can really manage. So definitely it's like application failure. It's like you have prepared a food for 100 people and suddenly 200 people actually came to eat. Definitely 50% of people will not have food, they will go without food. Okay, so that's because the demand, the maximum capacity you have on maybe 120 people or maybe 150 people can eat in that 100 people arrangement, but not like 200. So 50, eventually 50 people somehow will go hungry or they will not have any food. So to make sure that demand is actually settled, what you generally do or what companies, or that maybe manually might not be possible, but in cloud computing that is actually possible. So that is work is something like, whenever you have a high demand, your system goes up, and whenever the demand goes down, it automatically shrink down, it comes down. So it's a scalability options actually which you always go for. You getting my point? So this is where we talk
Yes,
about
yes,
the
sir. Got it.
scalability. Yeah. Sorry, you
Got it,
said
sir.
something.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, okay. So cloud computing, and look again, when I'm talking about increasing this demand based on the automation, based on all these things, this is not happening automatically. Again, because you have to set that configuration, and nothing happens automatic. You know that, but to make that automated things, you have to first configure that so it can work in an automated way. You don't have to work manually once you are configured that. So cloud computing actually provides you that flexibility. Cloud providing provides you that, okay, you, if you want, you can really go with that particular approach. Make sense? So yeah, I think, and this is there is a multiple types of actually scalability options which we have when we talk about that one. So the first thing is scaling up and scaling out. Now what is scaling up and scaling out? For example, when you talk about scale up, okay, scale up means you have a computer, and I'm not talking about, now we're talking about a technical term. Say like you have a laptop, okay, you have only 4 GB of RAM, and everything is good, fine, no problem. Or maybe you have only 16 GB or 100 GB of hard drive. But when you purchase that laptop, you say, okay, fine, no problem, everything is working fine. And now suddenly your daughter or your wife is also wanted to use that laptop because of some use, some personal use. Okay, and then she started working on that, so she also deployed some application on top of that, or she started watching some videos or something like that. What is going to happen? The demand increases. Correct, the demand increases for that device. The device is not really mean to support 2 or 3 users, but suddenly from one user it became 2 users. So the easy option is what you can do. You can actually add one more chip there, maybe your 4 GB instead of 4 GB, now you make it 8 GB or 16 GB. That's the maximum capacity you can actually add into that laptop. And once you move it to 16 GB, and then maybe from 100 GB drive to you make it like 200 GB drive or 500 GB drive. Forget, let's talk about that one. So that's a maximum capacity which your computer can really manage or your laptop can really handle. Now after 1 year or maybe 6 months, definitely your demand grows. Okay, or maybe now your daughter or your son, because of her online studies, you want a laptop. Now what? Now because you actually purchased that laptop only for one person, now it became two, now it became three. So again demands increases. So what you can and now you cannot really do anything because you have already kind of like expanded the capacity, you already use that. So that, first of all, that process of expanding the existing capacity is a scale up option, where you have immediately scaled up and fulfilled the demand. Immediate demand, that okay, from one user to two users, you fulfill the demand, everything is going fine. But now from one user to two user to three user, now you are stuck. Now what is the option? The option is actually going out. What is going out? So instead of you, and that's where the concept really comes into the picture. So what you are going to do, you are going to purchase another laptop for your daughter, for example, or maybe low configured laptop. Okay, not like 16 GB or 200 GB of RAM, but you will go with, okay, two CPU, 2 GB or 4 GB, again another laptop, and you will give it to your son or a daughter for her or his online studies. So you are separating out. That is what the scale out system really works out. Okay, so you have one system which you are growing, and you have multiple systems which are actually doing multiple things. Make sense, guys? Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
Yes, sir.
when we talk about fault tolerant, again, there are a lot of people actually what already talk about the fault tolerant things. Now, when we talk about fault tolerance, the concept of fault tolerance is to ensure that you are keeping your solution up and ready always. But as there are a lot of people actually, even the Edward Murphy and the person who actually is a CEO of AWS, okay, and the JC, they themselves says that everything can go wrong. So everything fails all the time. So these are some of the terminologies which even they actually understand that yes, no matter what you do, you plan for anything, but you will definitely go down. It doesn't mean that you don't plan, right? You have to always ensure that you are really planning the things well in advance and ensuring. So it's like hoping for best but ready for worst, okay, or prepared for worst. So you have to go in cloud computing also. You should always hope for the best option, best performance, best scalability, best availability and everything. But you always should really prepare for worst kind of availability. Like you have to consider saying that okay, yes, my system might go down, so how can I make sure my system is not going down? How many things which I have to really do? How can I monitor in case if something going wrong, or if going down, how can I ensure that the monitoring is available, the systems are available? That is very very important. Okay. So with this one you have to keep on seeing that how can we really do this, all those pieces, which is very important. Okay, by far any questions, guys? You're aligned?
Yes, sir. No questions.
Perfect. Okay. So when we are talking about cloud computing, when we are architecting the cloud computing, I think it's very important that how you really go with this one. Now we will, start with the Azure thing basic. I'll explain you maybe in the next chapter we can really go with. But apart from that, if I just want to touch base with few of the discussions which we had yesterday, right? I think few of the people really wanted to understand that, this particular training, how they will help. Is it only for freshers, or can I use, I think there was one question which was specifically from the experience perspective, whether is it important to have the experience and all. So I think the way what I wanted to actually explain, or what I wanted to show you, is that look, this training is not just for freshers. Let me be very honest, and I'm not expecting that you are coming from the freshers background and all those things. Definitely anybody wants to make a career into cloud computing, even though he has 5 years or 6 years of experience, definitely they can jump into this class. So this is definitely not for the freshers. Okay. The freshers, the terminology what I use in yesterday's discussion was purely in terms of a fresher in cloud computing, or fresher into understanding the cloud computing options. That doesn't mean that whatever experience you have, so for example, if you are already coming from the system administration background, right, or a development background, or maybe any other background, you can club that with this one. You're getting my point? So you can club that with this one, and you can also, because you will be getting the experience, if you can manage, okay, you can also say that since, like for example, since last 2 years I'm working on to this Azure thing. Maybe first initial 1 year I was actually into some other things, but last 2 years I'm working on Azure. I can give you that confidence after this particular class. Okay. So it's not like you will not able to show the experience and everything. If you follow me, if you do all the practices, if you complete all the things, and you ask questions and you make sure that you have all the assignments and labs and everything completed, believe me, you can show at least 1 year of experience in your resume. That's my guarantee, because I will teach you within these 2 months of time. I'm going to teach you everything whatever even a 1 or a 2 year experienced person may not really have understanding. So that level of understanding I will give you. So don't worry about that piece. And job is something which I'm sure once you complete this one, because I'm going to cover all those aspects which are important. Look, I'm working in this industry since almost 20 years now. I know in and out of everything. I have been to that transformation about everything whatever is really important. Okay. So I know what is really important, because I do a lot of interviews, I take a lot of interviews, I hire a lot of people onto these things. Okay. So I know what I'm looking for. At least from the cloud computing, I 100% know that okay, these are some of the things which are really important. So I'm going to teach you only those things which will benefit you to get a job and perform your job properly. It's not like just getting job, but if you are already working, I'll ensure that you are working with the fullest and you are providing your 100% there. Make sense, guys? Any other question? Hello.
No, sir. No question.
Okay, perfect. I think that's it for today. Then we will meet again tomorrow, and then we'll start from there.
Tomorrow is a Saturday,
And we
sir.
will.
Do we have class?
I'm okay if you guys are available. I'm okay. Otherwise, we can meet on Monday. Okay, guys. I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for your time.